Hey guys, welcome back to the Tukes and Tires YouTube channel. As always, I'm Zach, and this week we're going to be doing some body work on the C1 Chevelle. So just like Uncle Bobby B, let's get after this thing.
I get a sludge hammer and knock this right out. Hey, Manny, get your clown cousin and get some hammers and come bang this stuff out, baby.
Hey, is that Timmy's?
Yeah, because we're in Canada. Alright guys, so we're going to be doing some body work on the C1 Chevelle today. And when I mean body work, we're putting that into quotations because it's definitely not anything going to be perfect. You know, this thing it was a race car in its past life, and you know, it's been banged up a few times. So we're just going to be straightening up some panels to make them just to look a little nicer. You know, we have one gnarly dent and quarter panel kind of thing on the driver's side. We're actually going to come to that later on in the video. But we do have a patch panel to make up on the passenger side and kind of straighten up what's left of the quarter panel underneath. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start on that side. But you might be saying, hey, this thing is on the hoist. So if you didn't watch the shop update video, you would have seen that it was on the hoist, and the whole reason for that is we were actually doing some measuring underneath this thing to get ready to put that new rear end into the car. So basically it's magically here in this video if you didn't watch that. We're gonna actually get this thing up in the air, and we're gonna check out that quarter panel on the passenger side and what we need to do to it to actually kind of straighten it out. So here we go. Lacey, you gonna be doing some metal work today? Probably not. Alright guys, so we're going to start with this side. This side is actually not attached to anything, but you can see that this quarter panel was probably replaced at some time in its life, because I can see like a screw hole where this used to be riveted to this. So the plan is not to like make it look 100%, but just get it straight enough so that we can fit the door and patch this section in. The exhaust used to come through here and the door when they had like the old setup with the floor and everything. I'm not going to try to hide that either. When we make our patch panel, you're going to be able to see that that used to be there, but I do want to seal it up so that you know, we're not going to get any like dirt or water or smoke, like tire rubber flying into the cab, because you know, we need to close this all off. So I'm going to throw some tunes on my headphones and just start bashing this thing out. But we'll come back to maybe once I have it a little more situated. We do got some body hammers and some dollies and stuff, so we're going to see what we can figure out. Lacey, you're blocking the light. Come on. What are you doing? Alright, so the bottom of this quarter panel didn't turn out too bad after we did all that metal shaping to it. It's definitely not perfect because it was actually pretty mangled. I do have to put the body line kind of bends back into it. I totally forgot. So I made up this little kind of template thing off of the other side where it's still half decent. So I'll take out these self-tappers and just bend that into it. But we're going to do that once I actually make up this like patch panel for here. And I actually think we're going to get Dad to do a whole bunch of brazing on this thing, just because I feel like that's what they would have done back in the day. But what we're going to move on to next before we make up that patch panel is we're actually going to try to straighten up the back end of this car. So back in the day, you know, when they were racing this thing, it was getting banged around. They had a pretty gnarly crash on the driver's side in the back. I have no idea how it happened, but we're going to try to straighten it up a little bit. And to start with that is we need to straighten up this bumper. I originally thought about just cutting it off and making all new mounts, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to strap the frame kind of down to the hoist. we're going to try to use a jack to actually kind of push up on this, see how much we can actually straighten it. The bars underneath are, I don't know how much you're going to be able to see. Some of them are a little bent down there, so I want to see if they're going to kind of try to pull out when we actually try to move on this bumper. And then after that, if that doesn't work, we'll just end up cutting it off and making new mounts. But then what we can do is get this thing off of the hoist and actually start trying to fix that other quarter panel. So me and Dad, we're gonna mess around with this thing, see if we can straighten her up, and then we'll come back to how it turned out. So here we go. All right, so it's kind of hard to see under here what's going on, but you can see that we have a chain going across the top here, going through that tube on both sides, and then it kind of loops underneath, and then goes to here to a bolt that we're using to tension this, and then we're going to try to use the jack to jack up on that. So you can see this one is bent, that one's not as bad, so the driver's side definitely took most of the brunt of whatever happened. So I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to jack on one side at a time. So we're going to try to push this side out, maybe this side just a little bit, and see kind of what happens. These welds are ripped, so if this whole thing kind of rips right off anyways, I'm not too concerned about it because we'll just make it mount back on. But I figured if we can try to straighten it just a little bit beforehand, we will. So we're gonna get the jack in and see what happens. So hopefully something's gonna move. All right, here we go. We're jacking her up. Chain is gonna tension up, hopefully. Looks like we're denting in the gas tank back there. Oh. Oh, you can see it moving. Jack her a little more. But it did move. I think it was a lot worse than that. Alright, so we're going to keep jacking on this thing, see if we can get it a little bit better, but it looks like it's moving. So, I mean, that's a win. So I think we got it a little better. It's still not perfect, but I mean, basically my gas tank is going to be roughly the same width as this one. So most of this space is just, you know, wasted space anyways. So we might make a box there to throw some tools in or something. But, you know, we can always push up on this body because it's still not fastened at the back. So we can mess around with it that way, kind of straightening it out. But I think what we're going to do now, we're going to get this thing off the hoist, and then we're going to try to start working on that other quarter panel. But we're getting somewhere. All right, guys, so we just finished up that stuff on the back. So we're going to try to move it now. Just basically to get it back to where we had it in the shop here. We did have it running just to warm the motor up just a little bit because this thing is temperamental because it doesn't have a choke. So we're going to see how it goes. Lacey, get out of here. You're going to have to move that cat. Yeah, get out of here. All right, we got one cat moved. Okay, here we go. can move it over at the jack. Oh, that's a handful. All right, well, we got her pretty close. So,
hard to turn with
well,
standard steering.
It's not too bad. Like, it does turn pretty easy. Obviously, you wouldn't be doing that in like a real world situation, but yeah, to get it in the spot, it's definitely something. So we're gonna try to maybe pull it over with the jack. It'd be really good if we had dolly wheels to slide it over, but we'll come back to once we're a little more situated and we can show you that quarter panel. All right, so we got the car moved in here. Me and Dad rustled it over. It was actually a lot harder than we thought it was gonna be. So this is the dent that I've been talking about that's been pretty gnarly. So we're actually gonna throw a picture up on the screen of the C1 Chevelle back in 1977. It's got a whole bunch of other cool, like, old stock cars in that photo. But from that photo, you can see that this dent is actually there. So that's pretty wicked that this thing has been like that for like the majority of its life. I know this car has had a couple different paint jobs. Obviously, this is probably the last one it did have. I have a couple other photos of it with different lettering and stuff like that, so that's super cool. But I think the way we're going to go about this is I'm not going to fix down the back of the body just yet. I'm going to try to get out as much of this dent as possible. We're not trying to make it perfect. You will still be able to know that there was like crash damage here, but I just want it to float just a little bit nicer. In the back here, the taillight section also has like kind of a funny spot where it actually got crushed in. So I'm probably going to just try to take a 2x4 and a sledgehammer and just like bang this back and just try to manipulate this so the taillight will actually fit. Like I said, we're not trying to make this perfect because that bumper there has a huge dent in it and we're not changing that. So I guess what we're going to do is we're going to set you guys up. I'm going to start wailing on this thing with different types of hammers, and then we're going to see what it turns out like. So let's get after it. Alright guys, well there we have it. We got this quarter panel and rear taillight section all figured out and it's looking awesome. You know, there is still dents, like you can definitely tell that it was crashed in, you can feel it and stuff like that, but the wheel arch looks a lot nicer now, and this actually, I actually got the taillight to fit. So that's super cool. That took a little bit of finessing, you know, smashing it back and forth just because of how crushed in it was, but it's definitely looking super awesome with that on there now. This back little valance piece is still crushed in, but I don't think we're going to get too picky with that. You know, I am super happy with this, but I actually think this is where we're going to end off this video, just because I got some other stuff I got to get to. I got friends coming over, so I got to start planning some other stuff because we're going to be doing a whole bunch more work on this car. The few little patch panels I got to make, like on that other side over there, I think we'll do that when we actually start making up these doors, because I need to start doing that pretty soon. So we got lots of work to come up yet on the C1 Chevelle, but we are getting there. It's starting to look like something, and you know, it's gonna look like a car super soon. Oh, look at those friggin' headlight buckets over there. You know, we're gonna be putting those in soon. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys all subscribing and commenting everything you do. So thank you so much. And you know, as always, don't forget to salute the beaver. We'll catch you next time. Lacey? Huh? You've been snoozing in here.